Jimmy, I'm curious. Preseason rankings, which do you place the most emphasis on, or any at all?
What do you mean? Which do I place the most emphasis on?
I mean, is it the AP? Is it the coaches?
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got you.
Or even 247 or any of the various media outlets or Off the Hook Sports, any of those.
Phil Steele, I think he does the best job of rating it. And I will say this is self-promotion on his part, but when I go back and read his stuff, he talks about how many times top 10 teams that he projected to be in the top 10 were, how many top 25 teams were. I certainly don't think it's a coach's poll because they have an agenda and they're voting. And who knows if they're actually voting. I think the AP poll is a little bit more reliable, but I think Phil Steele does the best job. He has a bevy of information. He has offensive production, defensive production returning. He also incorporates the transfer portal production that you're gaining. I'm going to go Phil Steele is the most accurate.
I think he's pretty good. I do like Pro Football Focus a lot. And Caleb, Tennessee's ranked in the Pro Football Focus ranking. Where are they ranked? And let's discuss what that says about the Vols' talent level.
Yeah, so Tennessee came in at number 16 in this year's PFF Pro Football Focus Power Rankings. Slightly behind Clemson and Ole Miss. Now, I personally have Tennessee up in the top 10, and I'm really high on them. I think there's a lot of things that can't be quantified, but I think 16 is very close to, Jimmy, where you have them, right? Because you think they're going about 9-3 this year, right? So,
Correct.
I guess where I'm at is this, because you're right. I take ST plus FPI, Phil Steele. I think he does the best because he factors all of these. And then I do go with Pro Football Focus. Where I'm going with this is how hard is it to quantify Tennessee's talent this year because of the unknown of Nico? Because typically when you lose a quarterback, you say there's a drop off, but everybody in the world seems pretty certain that there's going to be an upgrade for Tennessee at quarterback this year. So how hard is it to quantify Tennessee relative to other teams this year?
I think it's hard because you lost a lot of players. Frankly, I was surprised, and I wrote a blog on this about how Josh Heupel said it's the deepest team he's had, and I don't think that. I see too many losses from last year's team. I think they're deeper in some areas than the 2022 team, but I think overall 2022 was deeper. Now, Caleb, I know one reason you're very high on Tennessee is that you think Nico is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, right?
Yes.
You think he's going to be terrific. I rate him about 6 or 7 in the SEC. I've got other proven quarterbacks that I've seen that I think are going to have really big years again. So that's why I've got him at 9-3. I do think Tennessee's hard to predict because I think they don't have very good depth on the offensive line. They've got to stay healthy there. You don't want Nico to take too many hits. I also still don't like their secondary. They lost, it seemed like 10 players in the secondary, some to the pros and about 7 or so to other colleges in the transfer portal. Those are 2 areas of concern that really bother me, the secondary and the offensive line. Now, if they can stay healthy on the offensive line, I think they'll be fine. But how many times do you stay healthy and start the same 5 every year? Not very often. So those concerns make it hard for me to predict Tennessee where they're going to go. Now, at 9-3, that puts them as a borderline playoff team. I think they're better than 16th, like Pro Football Focus.
Okay.
But at 9-3, I think they got a chance to get into the college football playoff, but that just depends on what other teams do.
Jimmy, if I told you that Tennessee, let's say Pro Football Focus is right, 16th best talent. First of all, let me ask you, I know you don't know every program's roster from top to bottom, but do you think 16 just in terms of talent level, not what they'll do or where they'll finish, do you think that feels about right?
I think that's fair. I think there's a range. I think if you had said their talent level was between 12 and 16, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference in that. So I think at 16 is probably pretty fair.
Caleb, what do you think about that? I think number 16's about right.
I think in conglomerate talent, it's about right. I think when you factor in the importance of the quarterback and how valuable I think Nico's going to be, plus Josh Heupel's coaching and his system, I think that elevates them a significant bit. But it just, I mean, if we're just going on just numbers of NFL draft picks, numbers of players from teams we think will be productive in the NFL, yeah, Tennessee's probably number 16. I think that's about right.
Well, let me ask you this, Jimmy. If Tennessee is indeed number 16, is that a win for Josh Heupel to have the 16th most talented team heading into his fourth season, given what he took over?
Yes. Yeah, I think it is. I also think if you've got the 16th most talented team and you go 9-3 in the SEC, that's another win. Because this league is just, it's brutal. It's really, really difficult. And so there's some games on Tennessee's schedule that, I mean, there are two games that I don't think they're going to win. There are a couple of others that are going to be very difficult to win. So, yeah, I think if you go 9-3 based on the 16th most talented team in the country, that is a win for Heupel in Tennessee.
Jimmy's appearance again brought to you by our good friend Ray Varner Ford in Clinton.
All-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge, all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Okay, I want to ask you guys both this. Is 16 good enough? Given that I think we all three think, and correct me if you don't believe this, that Josh Heupel is one of the better coaches in the SEC. So if that's the case, is 16th good enough, or do you have to eventually get to a Georgia, Bama top level of having elite talent? Jimmy?
I don't know that you have to have Alabama, Georgia talent, but you got to be nipping on their heels. And I don't think Tennessee's talent is at that level. Now, I know Alabama lost a lot, but they have recruited so well through the years that I still think they're the second most, well, Texas and Alabama would be the second most talented teams in the league to Georgia, in my opinion. And then Tennessee comes in somewhere in the mix right after that. So, but, and you're talking about win a national championship.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, you got to be better than 16th.
According to our poll question, and then I got that same question for you, Caleb. Tennessee's talent is blank, 1 to 10 in the nation, 53%, 11 to 15, 41%, 16 to 26%. Beyond 20 gets a big 0. That's not a stunner. Do you think coaching makes up for 15 spots, Caleb, or how many spots does it make up for in a talent gap?
With the PFF grades, I think coaching and quarterback makes up for 15 spots. Because remember, guys, what I'm saying, PFF is just taking everything evenly across the board with pro talent. So basically, they're weighting like they are weighing your number 2 cornerback the same way they are your quarterback in terms of value to a team. And so that's just what they do. Because of that, I think, yes, 16 can be good enough because we've seen it before. Auburn did not have a top 40 talent team in 2010, but they had this guy named Cam Newton, and they had this offense that this guy named Gus Malzahn ran, and it didn't really matter that they were so behind on talent everywhere else. He could just put them on his back and carry them to a national title. And so I think that's what PFF can't quantify with their method is, again, if you're number 2 cornerback and your quarterback, they're both starters. They're both going to be weighed equally the same in PFF. Well, we know that's not how football really works. The quarterback is worth 50% of your team, pretty much. And so I think because of how good I think Nico is going to be, I think they can. And Jimmy, to your point, I get the SEC's loaded. I'm with you between Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, Garrett Nussmeier, actually, who I think is underrated at LSU. And even Jackson Arnold could be good at Oklahoma. I'm with you on all that. But I'm telling you, Jimmy, please do not try to include Jalen Milroe ahead of Nico Iamaleava, because I see a lot of people doing that, and he is not a fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense, and I keep insisting that.
It's your request. I will not include Milroe in the Nico conversation. That's how much respect I have for you, Caleb.
Oh, thank you, Jimmy. I really appreciate that.